Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing abrupt climate change, the specter or the possibility of abrupt climate change. It seems very, very likely, and there seems to be lots of evidence pointing to what is going on, pointing to things getting worse, pointing to things happening faster than expected, pointing to imminent, very, very large problems for the human race. And I'm just presenting evidence based on, articles in media, and from websites, from The Guardian, from Huffington Post, from Truth Out, among other sources. Some of the evidence I'm presenting are scientific papers or abstracts from scientific papers. These are, these aren't the musings of, one dude on YouTube making up stuff about, what might possibly be happening. This is all of this is confirmed and reinforced by, dozens, if not hundreds, of other scientists and journalists reporting on this issue. And the unfortunate thing is that most people don't know how bad things really are. But I think that I do believe that many people are coming to the realization that things are very, very bad. And by the time that many, many people come to the realization that things are very, very bad and we should do something about it, it's going to be too late. And that, where does that leave people mentally, emotionally, spiritually? That leaves people, wondering, what to do with their lives, what's the purpose, what's the motivation for going forward. I often struggle with these questions myself. And it's all right. There's going to be a lot more people with a lot more questions pretty soon. So we have evidence of extreme weather happenings. I totally forgot to, I apologize. I really wanted to talk about this one video, and I blew it. I didn't really have enough time to go over it, but maybe I'll link it tomorrow. But what I wanted to talk about was these freak storms in New York, right? That just happened over the last couple days. But there was like tornadoes and hail and all kinds of stuff happening. Let me see. I'm going to find something I can read about it for you. Most of y'all know what happened, but I'm just going to do a little recap. New York girl, 11 killed when tree falls on car in Northeast storm. Residents in the Northeast cleaned up Wednesday, a day after powerful storms went through the region, leaving at least 3 people dead and more than 200,000 homes and businesses without power. The deaths in New York and Connecticut occurred when trees fell on cars. An 11-year-old girl was killed in Newburgh, New York, when a tree fell on a car she was in. The girl and her mother had arrived home and were unloading the car when the wind caused a large tree to topple onto the vehicle. A man was killed in Danbury, Connecticut when a tree fell on his truck. In New Fairfield, Connecticut, state police said a tree also fell on a car, killing one person inside. The storm brought thunder, rain, lightning, winds up to 70 miles per hour, and hail, and possibly even a tornado to the region. The National Weather Service said it would investigate reports of potential tornadoes in New York and Connecticut starting Wednesday. Investigators will look at telltale signs such as a narrow path of damage and leaf splatter. More than 148,000 utility customers in New York were without power early Wednesday. In Connecticut, the state's two major utilities reported 90,000 without electricity, most in the western part of the state. An official said it could take days to get the power back on. It was quite explosive, said National Weather Service meteorologist Ingrid Amberger, noting reports of trees coming down on cars and houses. They were very powerful storms that moved very quickly. Several lightning strikes led to structure fires in New Jersey and Massachusetts. New York's Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation reported 78-mile-per-hour wind gusts Tuesday and about 1,000 lightning strikes per hour. Holy moly. Officials from Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation said efforts to restore power to the region are expected to continue into Thursday, if not longer. There is no estimated restoration time. In New York's lower Hudson Valley, which includes Putnam and Westchester counties, more than 57,000 customers were without power Wednesday. Let's see, what else happened here? Roads in many towns were impassable, and some schools canceled classes Wednesday because of the damage. All right, severe storms. This is from May 15th, 2018. Lightning strikes, freak storms kill and injure 200 plus across India. Did Jeff send me this? Or Terry sent me this? I'm not sure. I think Terry sent me this. Over 80 people have been killed in India by lightning strikes and thunderstorms that swept across 5 states. With hundreds of others injured, the National Weather Service is predicting more heavy rain and gusty winds. All hell broke loose in India on Sunday, when massive dust and thunderstorms began to spread across 5 states in India, raining havoc on the road, rail, and air services across the northern parts of the country. On Monday, the apocalyptic weather continued to batter the country, uprooting trees and power lines, killing at least 2 after a wind speed reached 107 kilometers an hour in Delhi. At least 80 people lost their lives by Monday afternoon, the Home Ministry said, noting that 51 deaths were registered in the Uttar Pradesh state alone. Another 14 people were killed in West Bengal, 12 in the Andhra Pradesh, and 1 in Uttarakhand. I don't know how to say that. Uttarakhand, I don't know. In addition to the casualties, at least 136 people were injured in lightning strikes and thunderstorms, authorities said. While gusty winds are forecast to subside going forward, India's meteorological department continues to maintain a weather warning in place until Tuesday. Lots of lightning. All right. Extreme weather. Moving on to another article that I think Osama sent me from May 17th, 2018. NASA reveals major changes in worldwide water availability. Earth has experienced significant shifts in freshwater distribution across the globe thanks to climate change, water management, and natural cycles, among other factors, according to a NASA study. What we are witnessing is major hydrological change, said Jay Famglieri of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, California. We see a distinctive pattern of the wetland areas of the world getting wetter. Those are the high latitudes in the tropics and the dry areas in between getting drier. Embedded within the, we see multiple hotspots resulting from groundwater depletion. Researchers tracked global freshwater trends in nearly 36 regions worldwide using 14 years of data and imagery from the Gravity Recovery and Climate Experiment Mission, GRACE is the acronym for that, which consists of two spacecrafts orbiting the Earth. They analyzed the information alongside irrigation maps, precipitation data from the Global Precipitation Climatology, Landsat imagery from the NASA U.S. Geological Survey, and published reports of human activity related to agriculture, mining, and reservoir operations, according to the news release. The findings of the first of its kind study were published Wednesday in Nature, a scientific journal. This is the first time we've used observations from multiple satellites in a thorough assessment of how freshwater availability is changing everywhere on Earth, Matt Rodell of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center said in the news release. A key goal was to distinguish shifts in terrestrial water storage caused by natural variability, wet periods and dry periods associated with El Nino and La Nina, for example, from trends related to climate change or human impacts, like pumping groundwater out of an aquifer faster than it's replenished, he said. In some regions, like those with melting alpine glaciers and ice sheets, climate change is a clear driver of water loss, according to Famiglietti. Agricultural practices also have a big impact. Pumping groundwater for agriculture significantly contributed to freshwater depletion around the world during the period studied, which could explain a decline in freshwater that was observed in Saudi Arabia, for example. Levels of groundwater are also impacted by drought cycles and persistent rain, according to NASA. That's that for that article. I'm going to link that below. Some videos and some GIFs. Moving on. This is a scary article from The Guardian. Thursday, May 17th, 2018. Climate change on track to cause major insect wipeout, scientists warn. Insects are vital to ecosystems, but will lose almost half their habitat under current climate projections. Global warming is on track to cause a major wipeout of insects, compounding already severe losses, according to a new analysis. Insects are vital to most ecosystems, and a widespread collapse would cause extremely far-reaching disruption to life on Earth, the scientists warn. Their research shows that even with all the carbon cuts already pledged by nations so far, climate change would make almost half of insect habitat unsuitable by the end of the century, with pollinators like bees particularly affected. However, if climate change could be limited to a temperature rise of 1.5 C, the very ambitious goal included in the Global Paris Agreement, the losses of insects are far lower. The new research is the most comprehensive to date, analyzing the impact of different levels of climate change on the ranges of 115,000 species. It found plants are also heavily affected by, but that mammals and birds, which can more easily migrate as climate changes, suffered less. We showed insects are the most sensitive group, said Professor Rachel Warren at the University of East Anglia, who led the new work. They are important because ecosystems cannot function without insects. They play an absolutely critical role in the food chain. The disruption to our ecosystems, if we were to lose that high proportion of our insects, would be extremely far-reaching and widespread, she said. People should be concerned. Humans depend on ecosystems functioning. Also, other animals, like all of them, pollination, fertile soils, clean water, and more all depend on healthy ecosystems, Warren said. In October, scientists warned of ecological Armageddon after discovering that the number of flying insects had plunged by 3/4 in the past 25 years in Germany and very likely elsewhere. We know that many insects are in rapid decline due to factors such as habitat loss and intensive farming methods, said Professor Dave Goulson at the University of Sussex, UK, and not part of the analysis. This new study shows that in the future, these declines would be hugely accelerated by the impacts of climate change. Under realistic climate projections, when we add in all the other adverse factors affecting wildlife, all likely to increase as the human population grows, the future for biodiversity on planet Earth looks bleak. In the new analysis published in the journal Science, the researchers gathered data on the geographic ranges and current climate conditions of 31,000 insect species, 8,000 birds, 1,700 mammals, 1,800 reptiles, 1,000 amphibians, and 71,000 plants. They then calculated how the ranges change when global warming means some regions can no longer support particular species. For the first time in this type of study, they included the 1.5C Paris target as well as the 2C, the long-standing international target, and 3.2C, which is the rise the world will experience by 2100 unless action is taken beyond that already pledged. The researchers measured the results in two ways. First, they counted the number of species that lose more than half their range, and this was 49% of insect species at 3.2C, falling to 18% at 2C and 6% at 1.5C. Second, they combined the losses for each species group into a type of average measure. If you are a typical insect, you would be likely to lose 43% of your range at 3.2C, Warren said. We also found that the three major groups of insects responsible for pollination are particularly sensitive to warming. All right, these numbers are all very nice and well and good. But, you know, they're actually going to go on to talk about, or did they already say something about this? So, you know, a study in Germany, the German study said that we had lost, or they had, you know, detected a 75% loss in insect population. 75% already. We're supposedly at 1C or something, you know. Some studies say 0.5. Some studies are at 1, some are at 1.2 or whatever. So right now at 1, you know, we're at like 50 to 75% loss in some places of just insects. We're not talking about other animals. So I don't understand what, you know, I don't know what they're talking about, 3.2 or, you know, 2C. Talking about, you know, as much loss as they're talking about by 2100. I mean, you know, just extrapolate 75% loss right now, you know, at, let's say 1C. So if we go to 1.5, you know, how much time till we have zero insects? I would say not a lot of time, right? You know, if you just want to follow that logical step forward, or 2C even. I don't know. I don't understand how they actually come up with these numbers. They're a little bit, a lot of it doesn't make much sense. But Guy Midgley at University of Stellenbosch, South Africa, and not part of the research team, said the new work built on previous studies, but is far more comprehensive. He said major impacts on wildlife would be expected given the potential scale of climate change. Global average surface temperatures in the past 2 million years have rarely approached the levels projected over the next few decades, or how about soon? Warren said the new work had taken account of the ability of species to migrate, but had not been able to include the impact of lost interactions between species as ranges contract. Ooh, those all-important lost interactions. Or of the impacts of more extreme weather events on wildlife, as both of those would increase the losses of range. Warren said the estimates of losses made were likely to be underestimates, likely as in they are. Absolutely. Anyways, that's pretty much the end of this article, and I don't have the stomach for the bull right there. I also thought this article was interesting. It's from the Washington Post. Someone somewhere is making a banned chemical that destroys the ozone layer, scientists suspect. Emissions of a banned ozone-depleting chemical are on the rise. A group of scientists reported Wednesday suggesting someone may be secretly manufacturing the pollutant in violation of an international accord. Emissions of CFC-11 have climbed 25% since 2012, despite that the chemical being part of a group of ozone pollutants that were phased out under the 1987 Montreal Protocol. I've been making these measurements for years, more than 30 years, and this is the most surprising thing I've seen, said Stefan Monska, a scientist with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration who led the work. I was astounded by it, really. It's just a distressing result amid what is widely seen as a global environmental success story in which nations alarmed by a growing ozone hole, collectively took action to phase out chlorofluorocarbons. Anyway, say that 10 times fast. The finding seems likely to prompt an international investigation into the mysterious source. Officially, production of CFC-11 is supposed to be at or near zero. At least that is what countries have been telling the UN body that monitors and enforces the Montreal Protocol. But with emissions on the rise, scientists suspect someone is making the chemical in defiance of the ban. Gee, do you think so? Somebody's cheating. Durwood Zalke, founder of the Institute for Governance and Sustainable Development and an expert on the Montreal Protocol, said in a comment on the new research. There's some slight possibility that there's an unintentional release, but they make it clear there's strong evidence that it is actually being produced. The scientists don't know exactly who or where that person would be. A U.S. observatory in Hawaii found CFC-11 mixed in with other gases that were characteristic of a source coming from somewhere in Eastern Asia. No duh. Can we say possibly China? Or, whatever. Somewhere over there. I'm sure somebody's making this stuff. But scientists could not narrow down the area any further. Salke said he was surprised by the findings, not just because the chemical has long been banned, but also because alternatives exist, making it hard to imagine what the market for CFC-11 today would be. The research was led by U.S. researchers with NOAA, with help from scientists in the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. The result was published in the journal Nature. Yeah. And more, they're just blah, blah, blahing about more of the same stuff. Of course, somebody is making this stuff. Of course, somebody is, poaching animals that are endangered. Of course, someone is, mining, mining chemicals or mining minerals that they shouldn't be mining, or mining without a license. Of course, people are destroying the environment and, and not telling anybody about it. Of course, Japan is killing whales all over the world, all over the globe, and under the auspices of, scientific research. Of course, we're doing all these things. We're doing all these things because we have to, because we live in a, the society, in the system that we live in, which forces people to, make this money, to buy these things and have these things, and everybody's got to be rich, and everybody's got to have a car, and everybody's got to have a big ass house, and everybody's got to, everybody's got to live this dream that we are constantly being told that we need to live. And, why wouldn't they do that? And some people are just trying to live, right? Some people are just like, I don't have anything else going on. I don't have a farm. I don't have a house. I don't have nothing, but I can go over here and poach these like rhino horns and make a couple $100 because somebody in China wants to buy them. Like, of course you're going to do that. Of course you are, because you need the money. Somebody asked me, I think it was Christopher, asked me, what the Black Bear Party platform might be or might look like. And I've thought about it. I mean, obviously, in a basic sense, the Black Bear Party platform, if there was a Black Bear Party, like a political party, it would be, it would be environment first. It would be, a very radical shift in our current thinking and paradigm. It would have to be. There would be, there's nothing else that could come first before, possibly saving the environment and, from collapsing completely and everybody on Earth dying. That would be the party platform. Let's not die. How's that for a slogan? Or, there's probably more morbid slogans I could think of. But you would have to, it would be, a political party or organization that was, whose goal was to, shut down industrial civilization as we know it. I know that sounds really probably very bizarre, but, either it shuts down or it gets shut down. So those are your choices. Either we stop doing this or we will be stopped from doing it. So there's no, it's like driving a car into a brick wall. Like, you could either stop yourself before you hit the wall, or you will stop when you hit the wall. Like, those are our choices. So either stop or be stopped. So, what would that look like? What does stopping look like? Stopping would look like, taking whatever wealth or resources that we had and trying to turn basically, let's say if we start with the United States of America, you start by turning the population into an agrarian, some kind of like agrarian city state, I don't know, loose confederation of, some kind of democracies. I don't know what it would look like, but you'd have to stop things like the military. You have to stop things like, factories and shipping and airplanes, and you have to stop all of this stuff. And then you have to reinvest what resources you have into decommissioning all nuclear power plants. You have to use whatever resources and funds that you have left to, mitigate whatever damage we've already done. I don't know how you mitigate that. I don't know. You'd have to, the greenhouse, the mechanism for, runaway global warming has already been triggered. So how do you stop that? You'd have to put the best and the brightest of scientific minds on this problem. So, this is the war. This is the problem. The Great Crusade. The highest of all endeavors would be like, okay, so we're not going to use all of our brain power to destroy the earth. Let's, try and use all of our brain power to, stop this destruction and stop whatever it is that we've already put into motion. One of my party platforms, famous party platform, if you haven't already heard it, would be to give people free homes and land, if they would just cultivate, their own, give them the homes and land. Here, grow your own food, figure out how to build cooperatives, food cooperatives, educational cooperatives. You'd have to kind of like, I would imagine, and I'm sure that, somebody will bring up, there's transition towns and zeitgeist movements, and there's already models for this kind of thing already happening. There's isn't there a huge city in India which is like a transition, like a very low, off grid, this is how the world might work in the future. There's countries like Cuba that are doing, that farm their own food, and they're, basically agricultural entities. So, we'd have to, we'd have to figure out what it would look like to live in a future without, oil, without all the amenities that we feel like we need to have. You'd have to have psychological help for people, because coming down off of this, this high that we're on, that we can have that everything is at our fingertips, and, we're supposed to be having this many children, and we're supposed to be taking all these trips, and we're supposed to be like traveling and, being rock stars and doing like do and like doing all this stuff, like, wiping that away from everybody's consciousness is going to be traumatic. It's going to be, many people will absolutely lose their minds if you told them, like, you can't have your Ford Mustang, you can't have your Dodge Charger, you can't have your, ATVs and your Winnebagos and all your little toys that you feel like you need to have. No, you don't get those things. Sorry. How would all of this be enacted? I mean, all of this stuff is, you could possibly legislate it, but you would, you'd have to have some kind of consensus. You'd have to have some kind of mandate from enough people to actually make it work. Those are the basic tenets of what it would look like, I guess, to have some kind of political party, that is concerned, absolutely not just concerned, but whose sole concern is trying to dig us out of this hole that we've dug for ourselves. There's lots of thoughts on what the solutions might look like, and I welcome thoughts on what the solutions might look like. I welcome any kind of like, obviously there's people on this channel who feel like there's, what's the point, blah, 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 blue. We're just doing this as an exercise. But I liked the question. I thought it was a valid question, and it's probably one that that I might actually need to sit down and, like, step by step, paragraph by paragraph outline, what it is that actually looks like. And I probably will do that. I would like to do that when I get some free space in my brain and in my life. But anyways, just food for thought. If y'all have any thoughts on that, what would it look like? Envision us actually turning this Titanic around. Envision, what that next world would look like. Envision what a world without fossil fuels. Envision a world where, people are peacefully living with each other, without, the need for a police state or, martial law or military state. without the need for, stealing and ransacking other people's resources in order to live, what would that look like? How could that transpire? It's not it's not a worthless thing to engage in, I don't think. So anyways, thank you for the question, Christopher. That's just some of my thoughts on it. Maybe I'll have some more cohesive things for you later. But it's basically stuff that I've been talking about, videos over the last year. I've been talking about, what it would be that I would like to see happen. Yeah, that's basically it. But there are some very, very large technological, inevitable things that need to be dealt with. And how do we deal with those things? How do you decommission however many nuclear power plants are in the world? How do you do that? How could that be possible? If we're taking down industrial civilization, and those power plants need industrial civilization in order to keep running. That, my friends, is a conundrum of major proportions. That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you so much for your ears, your eyes, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. I will be linking all of these articles as well below in the description box. Until next time, peace.